The morning sun sat low, spilling pale gold across the diner lot. The asphalt still carried last night's damp sheen, broken by the scuffed boots of an old veteran who moved slower than most, but with a steadiness that caught the eye. His jacket was faded seams, soft from years of wear. On the sleeve, a patch half hidden beneath a crease glimmered briefly in the light. A group of bikers pulled in engines, coughing chrome, catching the sun. They were younger, louder, and eager for an audience. One swung his helmet onto the table outside, smirking as he pointed. "Look at that jacket," he said loud enough for the porch crowd. "Picked up at a thrift store, I bet." The words landed sharp. Laughter bubbled from the others, quick and careless. The veteran did not answer. He simply adjusted the jacket over his shoulder, his gaze drifting beyond the circle of mocking faces toward the flagpole by the lot's edge. Its fabric sagged, wrinkled from last night's rain. He studied it as if the flag itself deserved more attention than the jeers. "Come on, old man," another biker teased. "That patch looks fake." "Surplus knockoff." Someone chuckled, another clapped the tabletop. A waitress froze in the doorway, tray balanced, unsure whether to step out or retreat. The laughter lasted seconds, though in memory it stretched. But then came the stillness. A few regulars leaned forward in their seats inside the diner, quiet now, their spoons idle in coffee mugs. Even the young busboy at the counter stopped wiping glassware, his eyes fixed on the patch. The veteran breathed once, a long, steady draw, then exhaled. His voice came low, unhurried. "You boys finished?" The question wasn't sharp, but it carried. It pressed the air flat, silencing the chuckles. The bikers shifted as if the lot had cooled beneath their boots. Still one pressed. "Hey, I'm just saying real soldiers don't wear junk like that." The old man's reply was measured. Sometimes what's real isn't obvious to the eye. A hush spread. Only the buzz of a neon sign and the distant hum of traffic remained. Inside the diner, coffee poured, but no one spoke. The busboy whispered to the waitress, "Did you see the patch? Looks older than my dad." She nodded, lowering her tray slowly. "Older than this diner, maybe." The veteran turned slightly, his hand brushing the faded fabric near the patch. He didn't lift it into view, not yet. Instead, he shifted his weight eyes, never leaving the flag. "Not every story shouts," he said softly, words more to himself than anyone else. The lead biker scoffed, but the sound fell flat. The veteran had not risen to the bait, had not argued. His calmness unsettled more than anger might have. One by one, the chuckles died, leaving the low flutter of the flag in the November air. For a moment, the lot felt like a stage between eras, loud engines cooling, quiet memory rising. The silence grew heavy, and a few townsfolk inside leaned toward the window. The veteran's eyes lingered on the wrinkled stars and stripes. He breathed again, slow, steady. And the crowd felt it, the weight of silence heavier than any insult. Cliffhanger. But the silence at the flagpole said otherwise. The diner hummed with its morning rhythm. Plates clattered, chairs scraped across tile, and the hiss of the coffee pot filled the narrow room. The old veteran slipped inside quietly, jacket draped across his shoulders. He chose a corner stool, not bothering to glance toward the bikers who still lingered at a window booth. Behind the counter, the young busboy from earlier juggled cups and a steaming pot. The machine sputtered, groaned, and then quit with a sharp hiss. Coffee dribbled to a stop. "Not again," the boy muttered, setting down the pot. "This thing breaks every week." The veteran leaned forward, his voice even. "Mind if I take a look?" The boy blinked, surprised. "Sir, it's fine. We'll call the repair guy." "No charge," the veteran said. "I've fixed a few in my time." He stood moving with deliberate calm and eased the machine forward. Tools weren't needed, just patience. His hands worked the valve, checked the filter, wiped the seal with a folded napkin. Every motion was quiet, practiced. The waitress leaned over the counter tray, balanced. "You know machines, I know." "Persistence," he answered softly. The busboy watched curiosity tugging. His gaze dropped to the veteran's sleeve where the faded patch caught the fluorescent light. The boy tilted his head. "That patch, it's real." The veteran didn't look up. "Real enough to carry." Steam rose as the machine sputtered back to life. Coffee flowed dark and steady into the waiting pot. A round of applause came from a booth in back, half teasing, half impressed. The waitress smiled. "Well, you just saved us a morning rush. Coffee's on the house." The veteran only nodded, returning to his stool. He didn't boast, didn't linger. The boy still stared at the patch. "Was that from the '72 parade?" the boy asked, uncertain. The veteran's brow furrowed. "No, '73. Coldest year we had." An older man at the counter chuckled. "It was '74, neighbor. I marched that day myself." The busboy grinned nervously. "Guess memory's a tricky thing." The veteran shrugged. "Dates fade. Service doesn't." A silence settled for a breath. The youth bit his lip, then nodded with new respect. The flag outside rippled faintly through the window. The hiss of fresh coffee filled the gap. Silent beat. The boy paused, mug in hand, as if weighing a thank you. He finally spoke. "Appreciate it, sir. Not just the machine." The veteran gave the faintest smile. "You'll learn small fixes hold bigger weight than speeches." The boy kept staring at the patch, eyes caught by its threadbare edges. Cliffhanger till the boy couldn't stop staring at the patch. The day stretched into late afternoon shadows, falling longer across the town square. The diner had emptied after the rush, leaving only a thin scatter of voices. The old veteran stepped out slowly, jacket still folded close, the patch barely visible. He moved toward the corner store where a few neighbors gathered by the register. The clerk sharp-tongued and tired-eyed the jacket as the veteran laid a few coins on the counter. "That thing again," the clerk said, shaking his head. "Looks more surplus than service." The words carried beyond the counter. A biker from the morning sat at a table near the door, and he grinned when he heard. "Told you," he called. "That jacket's just thrift shop junk." The clerk laughed lightly, stacking coins. "Some folks live off stories that never happened." The veteran didn't argue. He pressed his palm flat on the counter, steady, but his eyes stayed on the small pile of change. "Not every truth needs defending," he said quietly. But whispers began. The woman behind him leaned toward her friend. "Did you hear? He claimed the parade was '73. Everyone knows it was '74. Another voice joined. "Funny how details slip when you want attention." The veteran gathered his change, no rush, no reply. He slipped the jacket back on, and as he did, the patch slid briefly into full view before folding beneath the crease of his arm. No one seemed to notice but the young busboy at the back who had followed him in. The boy frowned, uncertain, his voice hesitant. "I don't think he meant it like that." The biker laughed again. "Kid, don't waste your breath. Some folks just want a stage." The veteran turned for the door, the words falling around him like dust. He stepped outside into the cooling air. The sun lowered, painting the porch swing on the diner's side stoop in amber light. He lowered himself onto the swing, its wooden slats creaking under his weight. Night insects already buzzed at the edges of the lot. He folded the jacket neatly beside him, his hand resting lightly on the sleeve, where the patch hid from view. Silent beat. He sat still, listening only to the insects and the faint sway of the swing. The boy followed him out, lingering near the doorway. "Sir," the boy began, voice soft. "They just don't see it." The veteran gave a half smile. "Truth has a way of waiting, longer than doubt." The boy nodded, but inside the chatter had already taken root. Whispers moved from booth to booth, clerk to customer, and by evening, word had spread along the street. Cliffhanger, then word spread. He wasn't who he claimed. The diner was crowded well past its usual rhythm. A parade had just wound through town, leaving brass echoes on the streets and the faint smell of kettle corn drifting in. Families filled booths, boots tracked in dust, and the jukebox was silent under the weight of chatter. The old veteran sat near the window jacket, folded neatly across his lap. For once, the patch was in plain sight. Its threads were worn thin, the colors muted by years, but the insignia remained intact, a quiet witness to decades most had forgotten. The bell above the door jingled. A man stepped inside, tall and broad-shouldered even in age. Retired General Harlan carried the kind of gravity that came from years of command. He greeted a few neighbors, removed his gloves, and turned toward the counter. Then he stopped, his eyes fixed on the patch. The diner noise fell in layers. Forks paused, cups hung mid-air, even the hiss of the coffee pot seemed to fade. The general spoke in a voice low but firm. "That insignia, I haven't seen it since '79. Heads turned. The busboy leaned out from behind the counter, lips parted. Even the waitress with her tray of pie slices froze in the aisle. The veteran looked up slowly. His tone was steady, carried longer than most care to count. The general moved closer, each step deliberate. His medals no longer gleamed. His expression did. "You were with the 312th. I thought no one from that unit remained in this county." The veteran inclined his head. "Not many. Fewer each season." Whispers passed among the booths. A father at the corner table bent to his daughter. "That's real. That patch is real." The busboy whispered, louder, eyes wide. "All this time, and we laughed." The veteran did not flinch. He straightened words, carrying like a calm current. "This patch isn't cloth. It's weight. Every stitch holds a story. Some stories never make the papers. They live in silence until someone chooses to see them." The general's hand rose slowly. For the first time since entering, he stood still, shoulders squared, but eyes softened. His palm reached chest height, then rose into a salute. The room held its breath. Silent beat, the general's hand froze, mid-air, eyes locked on the patch, reverence heavy as stone. The veteran's voice remained calm. He was slammed by protocol before, but the patch carried him through. The words landed not as complaint, but as testament. He had endured endless rules, the cold weight of paperwork, the pressure of being overlooked. Yet the patch had steadied him, proof stronger than accusation or doubt. The general spoke with clarity. This patch carried more weight than 100 speeches. No one applauded. The silence was thicker than any cheer. Outside, even the parade band seemed to falter. Inside, neighbors shifted eyes down as if to honor something too sacred for noise. The waitress set down her tray, gently, a slice of pie untouched. The busboy swallowed hard, his hands trembling around a coffee cup. For the first time, the veteran was not merely an old man in a jacket. He was a keeper of something larger. The general lowered his salute slowly, his gaze never leaving the patch. I salute the man, not just the cloth, he added softly. And for that heartbeat, even the clock on the diner wall seemed unwilling to tick. Cliffhanger. And for a moment, even time seemed to freeze. Sunday sunlight spilled across the narrow steps of the town's old church. The air carried a mix of hymn echo and the crisp bite of autumn. Families shuffled out slowly, hymnals tucked beneath arms, voices still low from the service. Yet the talk was not about scripture or music. It circled instead around what had happened at the diner 2 mornings before. "I swear," whispered Mrs. Caldwell. Her voice hushed, but urgent. The general just stopped. Right in front of everyone. Beside her, Mr. Jameson nodded. And then he saluted. Haven't seen that man salute in public since retirement. Another neighbor leaned in, eyes wide, and that patch looked like it carried the weight of the whole room. The hymn still lingered in the rafters, wrapping itself around their whispers. Silent beat. A hush fell as the final chord seemed to hang in the air longer than breath. The veteran sat alone in a back pew jacket folded neatly beside him. He heard every word, though no one addressed him directly. For once, the comments carried no edge of mockery. They were softer now, more like reverence, as if a new hymn had begun in the language of ordinary folks. Outside, the conversations spilled across the churchyard. Children tugged at coats, but the adults kept turning back to the same story, the salute, the silence, the patch. It was told and retold until it felt like every voice carried a piece of it. By mid-morning, the same story threaded its way into the post office. Lines stretched toward the counter, envelopes balanced on palms. The shuffle of letters mixed with the clicking of the old sorting machine, but the real hum came from neighbors talking in low tones. "You heard about the diner?" asked the postal clerk, sliding a sheet of stamps forward. "Didn't raise his voice," said a farmer, adjusting his overalls. "Didn't need to." The general spoke for him. A teenager in line, eyes still bright from Sunday's choir, added quickly. "My dad said it's the first time the whole town went quiet over a jacket." A chuckle rippled across the line. Not cruel this time, gentle, almost proud. At the counter, the young busboy from the diner leaned close, speaking to anyone who would listen. "He fixed our coffee machine like it was nothing. Guess the coffee finally tastes proud today." The quip drew warm laughter. Even the clerk, usually stern with Monday bills, cracked a smile. The sound lifted the stale post office air, making it lighter than usual. Just then, the veteran entered, letters tucked under one arm. He moved quietly, head slightly bowed, his steps unhurried. The chatter lowered again, not in suspicion this time, but in a new kind of acknowledgement. A few nodded. One man tipped his cap. Then conversations resumed, steady but respectful. Mr. Jameson murmured, "Funny how a patch can turn silence into honor." The woman beside him corrected gently, "Not the patch, the man who carried it." The veteran stood near the bulletin board, scanning notices for choir practice, community suppers, and library meetings. Behind him, the voices wove through the line like threads. Each retelling added a touch of pride, sanding away the laughter that once trailed his steps. And in those ordinary places, the pews, the choir, the post office line, dignity echoed louder than any sermon. Cliffhanger. Then came the talk of keeping the patch in town. The diner glowed in late afternoon windows, catching the amber of the setting sun. The tables had been cleared, chairs pulled close, and the hum of the coffee maker set a soft backdrop. Neighbors filled the space, their voices lowered, waiting for something small but certain. At the center wall hung a new frame. Inside, carefully pressed against black felt, was the old patch. Its frayed edges had been smoothed, its colors steadied by glass. A brass plate beneath it bore only the unit's name. Nothing more was needed. The young busboy, now dressed in his Sunday shirt, stood awkwardly at the counter. He cleared his throat, holding a folded note. We thought, he began, eyes darting nervously, that this town needed a reminder. Not of parades or speeches, but of quiet service. He gestured toward the frame. This patch stood for more than fabric. It carried weight, and we wanted that weight to stay here. Murmurs of agreement moved through the crowd. The waitress wiped her eyes, a farmer adjusted his hat, and the postmaster nodded firmly. The veteran stood off to the side, hands folded. He hadn't asked for this. His eyes stayed low, tracing the tile, but he listened. The boy unfolded the note, his voice steady now. "We'll keep a copy on the library board too for anyone who wants to read it. Just a line to remind us. Excellence is quiet, but it echoes forever." The words settled across the diner like another hymn. A pause followed, no applause, no clatter. Just stillness. Silent beat, the veteran exhaled slowly, and the silence of the room answered louder than any cheer. The busboy placed the note under the frame, securing it with a thumbtack. The golden diner light caught the glass, turning the patch into a soft beacon. A neighbor leaned closer, speaking quietly. "Funny. I've eaten here 20 years. Never thought a wall could feel proud." The waitress added, smiling through her tears, "Guess the coffee finally tastes right every day now." A ripple of warm laughter followed, gentle and brief, before quiet fell again. The general, seated near the window, rose without ceremony. He saluted once more, sharp and brief, then let his hand fall. No words followed. None were needed. The veteran shifted, but made no move to step forward. Instead, he turned toward the back door, slipping into the background as naturally as he had lived. The crowd remained fixed on the patch. Children stared, neighbors whispered, and the choir, still lingering from rehearsal next door, let a faint reprise drift through the open window. The veteran paused at the door, listening to the hymn mix with the clink of mugs and the hush of reverence. Cliffhanger, soft, close. And the echo lingered long after he left the room. They leaned against the diner counter at dawn, flag rope clinking in the breeze. A biker scoffed at the old veteran's jacket. His laughter pressed harder than protocol, and the crowd chuckled along. Then the room stalled, the patch on his shoulder caught the general's eye, and silence spread like a hymn, respect rising where mockery once sat. Quiet men leave echoes too. Let me take you back.